everyone, and welcome to Wrestling Royalty. As you can see, I'm already joined by Sam Smith tonight. We are going to be talking about Dominik Mysterio, or should I give him his full title, Dirty Dominik Mysterio, as he's been recently rebranded. We're going to be talking about his recent win over on NXT to get his first piece of silverware. Actually, that's not true. I think he's had a tag team title before, but his first individual piece of silverware in WWE. So we're going to get straight into it, straight after the intro. As always, we're here on a Friday night, and this is Wrestling Royalty. As I mentioned before, I'm joined by Sam tonight. How are you doing, Sam?
I'm all right. I'm wearing one of my Money in the Bank t-shirts tonight. I thought I'll wear it on the Give Me a Whole Yeah stream as well. I just thought now's the time to crank this one out because I bought too many t-shirts in London. But oh well. But yeah, I'm all right. Apart from gashing open my thumb a little while ago, I'm doing all right.
Well, speaking of all right, we've also got Tom in straight away. How's it going, Tom? Great to have you in and really enjoying your content. And today, I believe, was again, you can see some of Sam, but this time you can see Sam and his lovely other half who did an interview over on Tom's channel. Do you want to give a quick plug to that video, Sam? I was going to
say, the original idea was Tom I think he wants to interview more people as well. So heads up, Andy and Dom and everybody else. He wanted to interview Jess about what it's like living with me, not just because I'm such an interesting person, but what's it like living with somebody who's not just a wrestling fan, but is in the extremes, someone who does it as a job, someone who goes to loads of pay-per-views, actually gets on flights to go and watch it. So it was all about that and how... And it's not what you think. I wasn't very open about my wrestling fandom with Jess for actually quite a long time. We actually lived together before she knew the extent of it. And there was no hiding it from her at that point. But yeah, if you want to learn a little bit about that, go and watch it. And I have a feeling she's going to get more views than I do. I wonder why. But but yeah, but there you go. So...
Well, go out, check out Tom's YouTube channel, Tom Talks Rubbish. He's a good friend of this show. He's a good friend of Give Me a Whole Yeah. He's a good lad all round. So go check out his content. He's doing some great things over there, and plenty of other wrestling journalists and wrestling media appear on his channel. So definitely worth checking out.
We're going to quickly say, mate, about Tom. He's also now working with Fightful Select as well. So, you know, he's the last interview I think he did with us. He did one with you, then he did one with me. I think he's done Dom as well. So he's now working with Sean Ross Sapp's organisation, I suppose. And just to put Tom over just a little bit more, when I last spoke to Sean Ross Sapp face to face at Money in the Bank, because we were both there at the media circuit, weren't we, Andy? Mm-hmm. He knew who Tom was, but he didn't know who WrestleSphere were. So there you go, Tom. You are officially more famous than us. So there you go.
Well, we can only dream of the level of success that Tom is currently achieving. So he's a good lad. So well deserved and well earned. So keep it going, Tom. But yeah, we are here as always on a Friday evening with a topic. And today's topic, as I said at the top of the show, is going to be about Dirty Dom Mysterio, who is kind of going from strength to strength at the moment. So I thought it would be a good idea to have a chat about him and what he accomplished this week and where that kind of future leads in terms of like how far he can actually go in the industry and in WWE itself. So I'll just make things I know you like looking at mine and Sam's face as he swigs a beer, but let's put a nice picture of the Judgment Day on and kind of show people what we're talking about in terms of what his accomplishment was this week. So on Tuesday night or Wednesday morning, if you're in the UK, Dominik Mysterio was on NXT and had a title shot for the North American Championship. And as you can see, that was successful against Wes Lee, who I will say straight away, I thought has been a remarkably good, and good probably doesn't quite summarize it as well as it really deserves. He's been a remarkable champion over on NXT. I thought he's been a good fighting champion. Lots of amazing matches, including the one that we saw in LA at the Stand and Deliver event. where it was. To be honest, I was talking to one of my friends, John, about our sort of matches of the year so far, as we are around halfway through the year. Actually, we're over halfway through the year now, and that 5-way match was actually in my top 5 so far. So, well done to Wesley on an amazing run. I'm sure his story isn't done. I'd imagine there's going to be at least a rematch because shock horror, Dominic Mysterio didn't necessarily do it on his own to get that championship. So let's start with with this match before we kind of go anywhere else. One, have you watched it? And two, was this the right move for WWE and NXT to put the North American Championship on Dominic Mysterio?
Yeah. I mean, first of all, did you see the crowd?
Yes.
Their reaction. Some of them were like,
yeah, the guy who was proper like shaking his head into his hands was by far my favorite.
I liked it because you got to remember, like, you know this better than I do because you've been there and sat amongst them. Yeah. But they are such a smarky crowd. They are the smarkiest of the smarkiest. And a lot of them are locals, aren't they, to the area who go there for every taping or every show. Yeah. So when something like that happens, for it to absolutely stoke them and for them to be like aghast, then it's a big deal because they're the ones who are usually the difficult ones to please.
Yes.
They know what they like, and anything that falls outside of that bracket, they will tear to shreds. So for them to be as they were, that shows this was a move, because I think a lot of people went into that match thinking it was going to be another one of these events where someone from the main roster has a title shot, doesn't win it, puts over the NXT star, grudgingly gives them some respect, be them a heel or a face, and then off they go to the main roster again. Not this time, no. And that's the thing. It threw everybody because, obviously I'd seen the spoilers before it happened. After it aired, but before I saw it. I'm into it because I think it's part of a wider conversation we're going to have about Dom. But I like that they've done this, and I also think it's part of a wider story, giving most people in the Judgment Day a bauble to hold, bar one.
Yeah, which I guess there's a few things at play. As you said, we'll go through them because I think this win serves a number of purposes, and that includes for NXT because Wesley, I think I'm right in saying, has the record for the most successful title defenses for the North American Championship. I'm not even sure if it's the most successful because of how many he's had in terms of just an individual belt in the space of time he's had it. So he's been the fighting champion. He's been a very successful champion. So as you said, it was maybe a lot of people thinking along the lines of what you said about this is just to kind of push Wesley a little bit further and never really expecting that the title was going to change hands. But Judgment Day have been kicking around a little bit longer on NXT. We are used to seeing some of the main roster stars come down, or maybe not the biggest stars, but people who need a little bit of a bump themselves, but are respected enough that they can kind of give a bit of a shine to up and comers that are over NXT. Maybe a bit of a shock, and that certainly was seen on the faces of those that are there inside the Performance Center. So really cool to see that they pulled this, but it's, for me, serves a massive purpose for NXT because it shows you how unpredictable it is. So you need to tune in. Having the likes of Judgment Day, who are probably one of the hottest stables or acts that WWE have at the moment, come down and do like a long run is really cool. What do you think about bringing people in, and how successful do you think Judgment Day has been so far down on NXT?
Oh, that's a great question because I think Judgment Day at the moment are hotter than they've ever been. It's no secret that WWE want to position them as the next bloodline, or at least position their importance as the next bloodline, because the bloodline story really has to fully end completely at WrestleMania. In many ways, it's already ended in some respects. But having people come down to NXT and interact with that talent is a great way of reminding everybody that NXT is there. It's the third brand. Yes, it's gone back to being primarily developmental, and that's not a bad thing. So it's nice when storylines intersect with the main roster it'll get more eyes ultimately on NXT because people will want to see the stars moving around the company and what they're doing, and it creates one large, consistent, interconnected narrative between the different factions and the different wrestlers, and that's what I like. Because I think WWE is always, well, not always, but for the longest time, has been that guy's feuding with that person, that guy's feuding with that person, and they only ever meet sometimes. Now, you go back a few years to when they were doing like Brock Lesnar, Roman Reigns, Samoa Joe, Bray Wyatt, Seth Rollins, all in the same matches at the same time. Stuff like, do you remember that? That was an awesome time to be just before the product kind of dipped. Now there were multiple storylines interconnecting then. Things were a lot more interconnected, and I really enjoyed that. So for them to get back to that point where the dominoes, pardon the pun, the dominoes. Now, like if one domino falls, it knocks over a load of others. And things like that. So this whole thing on NXT is a big impact on NXT, and it'll have a big impact on the main roster and the Judgment Day storyline, and therefore what's going on with Rollins and what's going on with Carmelo Hayes. So I love it when things are long-term booking pays off. They reward your loyalty. They reward the people who pay attention to the storylines and the feuds. Like the fact that the Finn Balor versus Seth Rollins thing, which is one of my most memorable feuds of all time in recent memory, even though it was about 6 or 7 years ago. That the fact that that's relevant and important again today, that's what I'm about. I love it when they do that. Like WWE has no problem digging up the past for nostalgic purposes, but it's so much more impactful when they dig it up from actual emotive circumstances. A storyline was good, and the past bleeds into the present. Like that's good storytelling. Because for too long WWE was so segmented, and they, just because Vince had a short memory, he assumed we all have a short memory, and we don't. We care and we watch this religiously. It's a soap opera to us, and we remember the storylines. So yeah, so I've given you another long-winded answer, but yeah, I'm into it.
No, that's absolutely fine. I mean, one thing I would kind of ask you as a follow-up then is Dom winning the North American Championship simply a vehicle to kind of create the tension that Finn Balor is now the only one in Judgment Day who doesn't have a title, and it all builds towards the pressure of SummerSlam, and will he kind of hold it? And also, where does that lead in terms of Damian Priest cashing in? So really, to summarize, is this a vehicle for the bigger storyline? And is that a bad thing?
Yes and no. Yes, it is a vehicle. No, it's not a bad thing, because it's not just a vehicle for that. It's a vehicle for a whole bunch of other things as well. Dom's going to have to lose that title at some point, and you bet your ass somebody from NXT is taking it off him. So it creates another star there, or at least potentially. Yes, it furthers the Judgment Day storyline. Although let's not forget, Finn could win at SummerSlam. Then Priest could cash in, create a feud there, or Priest could cost Finn somehow by threatening to cash in again, or Finn could win and then Priest fails to cash in. So there's loads of different ways they can go with that. But from an NXT point of view, yes, it lends to that tension of each of them getting a title, or each of them having a bauble of some description. But I think it's primarily to help NXT. The Judgment Day story being on NXT is going to get eyes on the product. Dominik Mysterio is Rey Mysterio's biological son. He's a wrestler in his own right. He's great at what he does. And we'll have a wider chat about this and him. But yeah, it's not just for the main roster. It's also for NXT. Not just by having main roster guys come there and win belts, but they've created a new monster in NXT, a new dragon, and a knight will have to slay this dragon.
Oh, very nice imagery created there. So before we move on to anything else, final question on the kind of NXT side of things. Do you find any kind of irony in the comments that have been kind of attached to Dom Mysterio, that he should have been in NXT the whole time, and now that he's arguably at his hottest, he's actually won an NXT title?
Yes, and it's delicious. Because I've been one of the people who's often said that, and it's not everyone who says that isn't wrong. It's probably time to stop saying it and appreciate the irony, because even when irony is at its cruelest, it's always funny. But it's like, Yeah, Dom. I always thought we were going to get to this later in the chat, but let's dig it up here. Dom hasn't always been the greatest wrestler. He's always been a bit awkward. He's always been just look at him do a 619. Okay, his dad's been doing it for decades. That's fine. But Dom's actually quite a tall, lanky lad. So when he does that, it just doesn't hit the same way. But the thing with Dom is he's kind of got himself over, and since turning heel, he's just been brilliant. I can't take my eyes off him. And I love how he plays into the crowd of opening his mouth and then they boo him and then he gets annoyed. Like, that's really good heel stuff. They're going to have to turn him face one day around, probably when Ray retires and whatever happens there. But right now, he's having the run of his career. Like, he's still a little bit ropey at times. But I'm thinking of since WrestleMania just gone and all the matches he's had since then, I've not seen him have like a bad match. So like the Dominik Mysterio that I used to think, God, this kid would have benefited from Rey Mysterio, and rather than the nepotism of sticking him on the main roster, I feel like I'm now eating my words because he's reached where he needed to reach now. He doesn't need yes, he needed NXT back then. He doesn't need it anymore because he's got there now. But him now holding an NXT title and having an NXT run almost feels a little bit deliberately provocative by WWE. So the smarks start going, you should have had a run then, it's almost so that they do that, and it makes it even funnier, and it's more of a heat generator. So once again, I'm into it. I actually think it's genius. He's arrived, and I've got no more criticism of Dominik Mysterio. I used to think, and I actually remember driving back from Clash at the Castle. Sorry, I know I'm going on again. Driving back from Clash at the Castle, and I remember saying to Jess, they've had to turn this guy heel because what else do they do with him now? Like, when his dad retires, he'll have to go. He'd probably have to go because he might not be able to cut it without his dad. Wow, how wrong I was. That wasn't even a year ago, and I'm so happy to be wrong. I'm the first to admit when I was wrong. But the great thing about being wrong is you should be happy when you're wrong, because usually it means something good. Usually,
when it pertains to wrestling, that's certainly true.
Yeah.
I mean, what I'm going to do here is we're going to jump around the narrative and kind of, I know we just covered the present, but we'll probably go back in a little bit and kind of talk about his beginnings, because let's face it, this weekend is Christopher Nolan's out, and he's a master at playing with the narrative. And I'm sure there's a lot of people out watching Oppenheimer and we'll watch this back in the future. So let's take a leaf out of Christopher Nolan's book and move from the present to the past. And we'll talk about Dominik Mysterio in terms of where he came from and your first impressions. You kind of covered it a little bit there. But I'd be interested to know what you kind of think about his kind of tag run with Rey Mysterio and whether that was successful, because that's probably where the criticism started to and kind of peaked, I guess. So was there any matches or kind of moments within that run that you actually thought there is something there, or was it always a case of this lad needs to kind of go elsewhere like NXT, etc.?
Speaking of Oppenheimer, Jess wants to go and see Barbie first, so I'm hoping one of her friends goes to see that with her, so then her and I can go and see Oppenheimer. Or was it Barbenheimer? They're calling it, aren't they? This opening weekend.
Yeah,
shitloads of money.
Shed loads of money. You know, if you're a movie fan, then I'm sure that we go see both. But let us know in the comments if you're watching along, and even in the future, I'd love to know what you're watching. Are you watching Barbie? Are you watching Oppenheimer? Are you watching both? And if you are, what order are you watching it in? I myself will probably end up watching both, but I'm not sure at what kind of stage I'll watch them. But I'm a massive Chris Nolan fan, so I'll be really hoping to see it. So yeah, let us know in the comments what you watching, and if not, then why not? But also, while you're there, give the video a like and give us a subscribe. The numbers are starting to creep up a little bit, and I'll give Sam a chance to cover off and promote some of his own stuff at the end of the show as well. But for now, click that like button down there, click subscribe, and you'll be the first one to know when there's new content arriving on the channel. So, as I said, let's go back and
to answer your question. Yeah, sorry.
Rey Mysterio. Yeah, answer the damn question, man.
Yeah. So, I think in that run, there's no matches that stand out to me where I actually thought, wow, this kid's got potential, because he was a little bit ropey on the mic. He was a little bit ropey in the ring. I was never at the point, like I said, even at Clash at the Castle when they turned him heel and he joined Judgment Day. I was getting a bit sick of him being beaten up by Rhea Ripley. Do you remember that? Mummy was beating him up every week. I was getting a little bit sick of that. And then when he turned heel, I thought, okay, this seems the logical thing to do. And he slowly won me over. It wasn't one like I want. I just thought at the time he could have benefited from the NXT run because the NXT does turn, it's a diamond mine, isn't it? It turns, the rough thing into a shiny diamond, hence the name of a stable, which is currently no longer there. But yeah, and I think Dominic needed that polish. That's what he needed because he's never been like really on the indies. A few indies, Mexican indies and things like that. Yeah, with his family, but going from that to the WWE main roster, like every credit to him for hanging. And surviving and in the locker room, backstage, the politics, everything, the bloody fans on the internet, that would have crushed me.
Yeah.
So credit to him for just having the strength of character and the willpower and the ability to improve.
That's probably where having your dad is such a legend. That maybe he could shield a little bit from that, or kind of like prep him at least to
Does it make it worse? Does it make it like filling Rey Mysterio's shoes? No one could ever do that.
But what I mean by that is when you've got a legend like your dad who's probably seen and gone through it all, especially like, and maybe not so much in the social media era, but it makes that criticism more surfaced, I guess. But having Rey Mysterio there to go, actually, you know what? It's better for people to be talking about you than not talking about you at all. And that doesn't matter whether, that at the moment, but having that voice in your ear saying, just ignore them. Like, we all go through this at some point for whatever reason. Rey Mysterio's, he came from a family that's been involved in Mexican wrestling, so he would have heard it at times as well. So it's very difficult to say whether it was a good or bad thing. Personally, I'd like to take you back a little bit further and go, do you remember during the kind of COVID period that the Rey Mysterio Seth Rollins feud, where it was almost like he had to take his licks, and he got absolutely destroyed with the cane. I know we don't call it a Singapore cane anymore; it's a kendo stick. But I remember seeing the pictures of his back where it's completely like messed up. For a lot of people, that was kind of like, he's paying his dues. At least he'll like kind of take it. But he was very raw back then as well.
I don't think it's necessary to take excessive bumps to pay your dues. I think that's I get why some people do, and I think it's a real old school mentality because you will take your bumps just naturally. It's gonna happen. Like it's not about how wild, how you can set on fire, how much you can bleed, how much pain you can take. It's about telling a story in the ring and putting on a good match and being a professional. So I get that. I think every wrestler is willing to go through that. And once again, every credit to him. I just hated that feud so flipping much because it ended in the eye for an eye thing, and I've had therapy to remove that from my brain. But I never really had a problem with Dom during that at all. My thoughts about him were pretty consistent all the way until he started coming out and cutting really. I don't know when it clicked for me, but if we go back to the beginning with Dom, I was always of the nepotism argument. But I also thought to myself, well, look, he's here for a reason. It's not just because he's dad. He must have something. There must be something here. And I can never just point at something and go, that was crap, because it never happened. There were a lots and lots of times where he wasn't quite in step with the rest of them. And it was obvious why. He hadn't been through developmental or, like you say, paid his dues. I think there's a lot more to paying your dues than getting smacked a few times with a kendo stick. Like I could get smacked a few times with a kendo stick, be red raw. I still can't wrestle. It doesn't make me any more likely to be a good wrestler or any of that. But it showed willing. It certainly showed that, look, this kid is prepared to do what all the other guys do. And considering some of the bumps he's taken since then and some of the stunts he's done and stuff he can do, this guy belongs there, just like with all the others. I'd say something similar to it about Logan Paul and other people like that. But Dominik Mysterio, it's not just in his blood. He's put in the work, and that is what matters to me, regardless where you do it on the Indies, NXT, the main roster. He's put in the work, and I'm a fan, and I don't think I'll have anything said bad about him now. I think.
Would you buy a T-shirt of his?
Well, when I buy your T-shirt, it's a really big deal. When I buy your T-shirt, there are some people on the. I don't even own a Brock Lesnar T-shirt, and I adore Brock Lesnar, but I've never seen the T-shirt's got to be right for me to buy it. And I must own about 40 wrestling T-shirts. A lot of them are Balor, Bullet Club, The Undertaker, Stone Cold, Roman Reigns. I bought a shed load of Roman Reigns T-shirts when he got leukemia because I felt bad that I didn't own any. Apart from a couple of Shield ones. So I went out and I made sure I did that to help do my bit to support his family. But Dominik Mysterio, I don't think I even have a Rey Mysterio T-shirt. So if you're watching, Dom, and I'm sure you are, I'll have one of your dad's before I have one of yours. But keep up the good work, and we'll see.
Well, slightly off topic before we kind of carry on. I did see today that LA Knight has the number 1, the number 3, and the number 4 best-selling T-shirt.
Yeah,
in the moment. So if that might be the next purchase that needs to be made because he's a good one. He's LA Knight, and you can check out both our interviews on our respective channels where we speak to LA Knight. So go check out that, which was released I think last week for me, and in the last couple of weeks over on WrestleSphere as well. You were present in SoFi Stadium night 1 of WrestleMania this year. And I'm hoping you agree with me, but I think the moment for me when I truly believed in kind of Dom Mysterio had arrived was that entrance where he kind of had the video and then came out of the back of a police van wearing the mask in handcuffs. And there was just something in the air when that entrance was happening. It's very difficult to explain if it translated. I would need to watch it back fully on the network to see if it came across how it did in the stadium, because I was all in at that point. I was like, okay, I get it now. Like the kid actually has a bit of gravitas behind him now. And whether that was a culmination of everything that had happened before that, or if it was literally just a case of he's got a really cool WrestleMania moment. But for me, that was it. How did you feel about his WrestleMania entrance and the match afterwards as well?
Yeah, because don't get me wrong, I thought it was a cool idea for a WrestleMania match, Rey versus Dom. Of course it was. But it wasn't one of the things I was there to see. I was happy to see it because it's Rey Mysterio and I'll watch him any day of the week. But yeah, I had the exact same thought. In fact, when he came out and the music, dun, 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 he's got on the mask, the handcuffs. And what's really, really good about that is that was before that entrance, that was a comedy bit that was still milking now, the whole he's been to prison when he'd only been there for 10, 20 minutes or whatever. So I was rolling my eyes at that before. But after that entrance, I thought, he's a star. Right, because I can't describe what it is either that made me think that, but it was just something about that made me think, right, he's a star. I had a similar vibe, not so much with the entrance, but I had a similar vibe about Austin Theory at Mania this year, which is exactly what they wanted me to do, because they wanted us to see him stood over John Cena's mangled corpse and be like, whoa, this guy. But like Rey had to win that one. Definitely. Dominic's time will come for the big moment where he goes over, but the entrance was enough. I don't know what it is, but my thought, I can remember what I thought, and my thought was, he's a star now. I don't know at what point it happened. Maybe it's right now, but at some point he's gone from being this little pipsqueak to a star, and awesome, because WWE struggles making stars sometimes. So I'm all in now. And I've been all in ever since. And this Judgment Day thing, I think he's the weak link in many ways of Judgment Day. He's the one I don't take as seriously as a wrestler, because the gimmick is
they play into that, right?
Yeah, exactly. He's a chicken-esque heel as opposed to a monster heel like Damian Priest, or like someone like Finn Balor who spent so long being the good guy he's become the villain. You know, so they're different types of heel. You know, he's a The Miz heel. He can't get it done in the ring, so he cheats. And there's a place for that type of character in Judgment Day. Of course, there is. But the only issue with that is he's always going to be the one. Like, remember when he had to tag, Damian Priest had to tag with him, and Priest was like, "Oh, what?"
Yeah,
because Finn was injured. So they are playing up to it in storyline, but there's only so long that can be like that. Like even the Miz needs to get angry sometimes and beat someone up. So yeah, they are going to have to. They can't go on like that forever if he's going to eventually turn face and be a big star that we know he can be.
Yeah, and I mean, one of the things at the moment is in terms of noise from the WWE universe or wrestling fans. I'm still intrigued to see if any of it is actually piped in or if it is all legitimate or not.
I get, yeah. We had this on Monday night actually. Shout out to Dan and then shout out to Sassy as well, because I think Sassy was like, "God, the pumping in all these boos for Dom," and I don't know. I've been in the room when Dominik Mysterio was come out, and so have you.
Yeah.
Like Money in the Bank and SmackDown before it. Nah, they were real, and it wasn't just because the London crowd are loud as hell, and they are. That was legit. I don't think they need to pump. They need to pump in boos there because the WWE audience is conditioned by the gimmicks, and they're now conditioned to boo Dom the minute he opens his mouth.
Yes.
So I don't think they've once pumped in boos. I think it's always legit. In fact, the first time that happened, it wasn't planned. The first time that they tried doing that, the crowd were just booing Dom out of the building. And WWE the next week thought, "Oh my God, we're onto something." That was actually organic. Because the crowd, I forgot why the crowd booed him on that particular week, but they were mad at him for something. So every time he went to open his mouth and they booed him, he just played into it. And I don't know how much of it was predetermined, how much of it was planned, but they couldn't have known about that anti-pop. So, but I genuinely believe that was legit. And as a result, WWE have thought, right, the new gimmick, Dom, is every time you do that, don't talk, let them boo you, and just then have a temper tantrum. I think that is the new thing they're doing with him. And I actually don't think, I think it's completely natural. I think every single boo is natural.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. We've been in the room, and I'm not 100% convinced because I think it comes across loud. It was loud, don't get me wrong, but I'm not sure it was as loud as it comes across on TV. But that could just be production value in terms of be quite savvy with where you put your microphones or be quite savvy about what comes through, because there are bits where you can kind of raise the audience microphones that are around, but then lower Dom's and the kind of like the kind of foreground, as it were, in terms of noise.
Oh, so for sure.
I'm not 100% sure what they're doing, but it's working. It's very effective. So
yeah, they can mess around with the acoustics totally.
Yeah,
that, sorry, but you were saying, mate. Sorry.
No, it's just the fact that is a discourse. Like, it kind of proves that at least he's being talked about. They know, and he knows now, like, how to make yourself like the person on social media that people are talking about. So if they're talking about whether it's real boos or not, at least they're talking about you, which is the main thing in wrestling.
And also, they're booing him because it's heel heat, traditional heel heat. They're not booing him because they don't like him as a person. At this point.
I think he started with that. I think he was getting go away heat, but even then, I think it was a bit indifferent. I don't even think he ever got like X-Pac go away heat, as it's kind of called. Whereas now, I think it's legit. Like, it's one of those things. It's a snowball effect, isn't it? Like, and to a degree, wrestling fans are, and I hope no one takes great offense to this. Wrestling fans are a bit sheepish in terms of they will follow the flock. Yeah. If someone is liked, and we're seeing this with LA Knight, they suddenly become the best thing since like sliced bread, because the snowball effect on social media gets out of control, and then they see the likes of London really getting behind them, and then the next crowd is going to do the same thing because it was in New York in Madison Square Garden, and then it starts to kind of permeate around oh, well, if London like them and New York like them, then I should do the same because there's obviously something there. So
that's interesting. Yeah. Sorry, mate. Sorry, I keep doing that. I keep.
No, you go for it. Go for it.
No. Sorry, the Chicago, New York, and London, or the UK especially, are three of the smarkiest, and Canada. They're like the smarkiest crowds you can get, aren't they? So, yeah, they won't necessarily go with the flow, because with them being smarky, they'll do their own thing opposite the crowd. So if they're doing it, then it's legit and it's totally real. The LA Knight thing as well. Yeah, it's. But I know what you mean though. Like sometimes wrestling fans will think they want something when they actually don't, and if they got it, they wouldn't know what to do with it. So that is true. But I think with Dom,
WrestleMania.
I think with Dom, I think he had go away heat when he turned heel. Because maybe a lot of people were sick of him. I don't know, or the goodwill wasn't quite there. Now I think it's goodwill. I really do. Now I think when the crowd do that boo, they're doing it because that's the gimmick. They're buying in. It's fun to boo Dominik Mysterio. It's now the thing. Dominik Mysterio is the guy you boo when he tries to talk. That's the gimmick now. It might even it might be one of those gimmicks that bite WWE in the ass, like the What chant. Hopefully not, but we'll see where it goes.
Yeah. I mean, part of the title, and we'll move forward into the kind of future now. Part of the title for this video was, could he one day be a WWE champion? And what I mean by that is a world champion or like a heavyweight champion, whatever you kind of want to call it, universal champion, etc. Do you think there's any kind of way in the future that Dominik Mysterio holds one of the big belts in WWE?
Yes. I don't think it's going to be anytime soon. I think there's a lot of other people who are way in front of him. But in order for that to happen, a couple of things need to transpire. I think first, his dad needs to retire. He needs to inherit his dad's mask. He doesn't necessarily become the third Rey Mysterio. He's Dominik Mysterio, and he's wearing his dad's mask to honor the spirit of his. He's not dead, but to honor the energy of his father and the original Rey Mysterio as well. So the heritage behind that will be important, and it's a marketing thing for WWE.
Yeah.
But then he's got to become a good guy with that heritage behind him. And like Rey Mysterio, he's got to have storylines that make him the hero and make him more likable. And when he turns face, it's got to be a really meaningful face turn. Like it's got to be a case of, look, I'm allowed to beat up my dad. I'm allowed to call him names and all of this. But as soon as somebody else starts it, no, I'm coming out and I'm sorting you out. It's got to be that. He's got to really see the light. Perhaps remain a bit of an anti-hero for a while. But once he gets into the title picture, it's not going to be about his dad. It's got to be about something else, something big that includes that heritage. Maybe his dad is retired and his dad gets beaten up, kayfabe beaten up by some heel at some award ceremony or something like that. And Dom is the one to defend his dad's honor. Rey wants to come out of retirement and have one more match. Maybe he does and gets thrashed. And then maybe at WrestleMania, Dom's got to defend his dad's honor against whoever the heel champion is. I think that is how you create a main star attraction behind Dominik Mysterio. But what I've just fantasy booked is going to be several years in the making. It's like the Bloodline story. They can't rush that. They can't DC Universe this. They've got to take the time and MCU this, build it film by film, stage by stage, show by show.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I'm not sure, thinking about it, whether anyone in WWE history has been so acutely tied to another person in terms of how their future pans out, because it's not very often that we've had a father and son. Yes, we get sort of second generation, third generation superstars, but it's not very often that they can compete together on an actual competitive level, rather than it being oh, look, Bob Orton's here to be a manager for his son, that sort of thing. It's not often that we've been able to kind of believably have a match between father and son, or have a tag team between father and son. So it's strange to me that I can't think of another example where someone is that tied to a lineage that you're almost dependent on your dad retiring. That's a really strange thing to have to kind of be beholden to, but that's maybe where we are with Dom Mysterio. From my perspective, I do think there is a way for him to do it, and maybe it's a way that you kind of have to echo some of his dad's accomplishments, because like Mysterio's done stuff like win the Royal Rumble from number 1 and go the whole way sort of thing, and maybe that's the kind of thing that you have to kind of harken back to, but have him fall just short and then get people behind him that way, because everyone loves an underdog, and that's where Mysterio's been. But can you believably paint Dominic Mysterio because of his stature and because of how they've pushed him into being an underdog from now on? This is an interesting quandary that they'll have at some point, I'm sure. But I guess in terms of when all is said and done, and this will be the way we kind of finish things tonight, Dominic Mysterio, when he hangs up the mask or hangs up the boots or whatever, what kind of career on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being a Hall of Fame with multiple championship reigns, all the way to it doesn't get any better than it does now as a 1, where do you think he fits on that scale of a WWE superstar?
Out of what did you say? Out of
so 10 being the top, as in he's had multiple championship reigns and a Hall of Fame career, and then down the scale to 1 where it's probably no better than he's got now.
Well, I don't ever see him being 10, because I don't even know if Ray is 10. Do you know what I mean? I think Ray's certain like Hall of Famer, most deaf. We saw him go in. He's incredibly important, especially to, maybe it's easy for me to say because I'm not part of the Latino community. I imagine if you are, that he's even more of a bigger deal. Like Ray,
who's a 10? Who?
Okay, I'm going with the 10s are the John Cenas.
Right.
Dare I say the Roman Reigns, the Brock Lesnar's, the Hulk Hogan's. I think there's a very small percentage of them. Ray's a 9, however.
Right.
So I think for me, I hope he reaches 9 level as well, but maybe 8, because I think he's in there with. It could go 2 ways, couldn't it? With Dom, like there's Randy Orton, who's held so many titles and things like that. But when was the last time you got really excited about him? No disrespect to Randy Orton, I can't wait to see him again. But he's an 8 in my view. For those reasons, I don't think he's ever on Cena's level or something like that. But I don't really like ranking them. But I think for me, it's 8, hopefully 9. But I reserve the 10s for the Cenas and the Roman Reigns.
Fair enough. I think, to be honest, if I was being realistic, I expect probably about a 7 career, maybe a 6, because I think he's got a lot to overcome, and it's whether WWE have that wants to invest in him, or whether he will forever be part of just a vehicle for someone else. Because there's an argument to say the match they had at WrestleMania simply set up Bad Bunny versus Damian Priest at Backlash. So it's one of those, isn't it? It's like that's cool because it was multiple things coming out of that match, but also did it kind of overshadow and led us to something even bigger and better in terms of that match and the atmosphere we got in Puerto Rico 1 month on. So I think maybe a 6 or 7, but I don't think that's a necessarily bad thing, because I think there's a lot of people who won't even achieve that level of success.
Exactly. So, I also think he absolutely has to retire his dad as well. I think his dad giving him his career I think it's a foregone conclusion. I think he has to get that win over his dad. I think that needs to, because if he never ever beats his dad, then he can never ever claim to be as good or be the next.
But that's part of the character building as well, is that
it has to
do that. Then that sets you up against someone who maybe did, and you then have to defend that honor and things like that. So there's a few ways they can go with that. So
I love the idea. Oh, sorry, mate, go on.
I was just going to say, either way, I think it's great that he has that opportunity, and certainly even a year ago, I don't think most people could have predicted where he'd be today.
I think I love the idea of him having that match, beating his dad, retiring him, and then realizing the gravitas when he's done that. I love that idea of all the bravado and all the BS as a side, and that's when he just thinks it's not about the victory. It was all about the victory, and then all of a sudden, once he's got it, it's like, oh dear, what have I done? Like,
yeah, is that like a Shawn Michaels versus Ric Flair moment?
Kinda, but I think we should
more after the fact than during it.
Yeah, because I think with that it'd be like, if what have I actually done? Like, hang on, I actually didn't want this. Yes, I've got the accolade, but I don't want it because I've just destroyed something beautiful. Or how do I atone? I think that could be a good story, that line there. But I do think he has to do that, and I think Ray, who has a lot of control over his own creative, apparently, and quite right. I think Ray will want that too. Before he goes out, I think Ray will want to go out. Ray's old school. He'll want to go out on his shield, and I think he'll want to go out to Dom. It's just securing his own family's success, or at least helping every bit, to do that in his own way. And I think the storytelling, I love what you said about him defending his dad's honor, but I think that can be done a different way. I think that can be done by, like I said before, Ray being there as a civilian and someone attacking him, and then Dom being the one to be like, "Oh, look, that only I beat up my dad, you SOB," and then Dom going after it. I think for me, there's more longevity in that, because you could then have your cake and eat it. You could do both.
Cool. Well, let us know in the comments, and what would you like to see in Dominik Mysterio's future? Have you enjoyed his run so far? And what do you make of him being North American champion at the moment? It'd be interesting to come back to this video in a few months' time and see how it's progressed since then and how long he held the belt for, etc. But yeah, let us know in the comments what you want to see in the Dirty Dom era of the North American Championship reign. We're going to keep this nice and short and sweet. But before we go, I'm going to let Sam do a little bit of plugging, because there's plenty of content and a couple of big watch-alongs coming up as well.
Yeah, there is. Yeah. So the first thing I want to plug is WrestleSphere, because it's becoming an increasingly important part of not just my job, but Dom's job, and somewhat yours as well, Andy. A little bit more now as well. So, yeah, obviously WrestleSphere is where we interview wrestlers from WWE, Impact, AEW, and elsewhere. And these interviews, obviously other people get interviews too, but these ones are exclusive to us. What we're asking them is exclusive to us. Everyone you watch, it's either me, Andy, or Dom, or somebody else who, as a guest, has done that interview, and so that's the one place to see that. Also would like to plug Give Me a Hull Yeah, which is our podcast, which is just us having fun with our audience and watching some wrestling together. We've and you'll see the difference between the two soon, because one is us playing with our friends, the other is where we actually have to do some work. But tonight we've got 2 live streams going head to head on Give Me a Hull Yeah. We're competing with ourselves, so we've got Diva Dom covering SmackDown at 1 a.m. BST. I'm not sure what time it is for wherever it is, whatever time SmackDown begins for you, it'll be time. Dom will be covering that. I will be on stream too tonight, but from midnight BST, watching the Ring of Honor pay-per-view, Death Before Dishonor. I'm going to watch the pre-show because I think it'll help keep me awake, and there's a lot of cool matches announced for it as well. So from midnight, maybe a little bit earlier, I'm going to jump on and we'll watch some Ring of Honor until the wee hours. So do come and join either one of us or both of us. Looking forward to seeing you there. It's going to be good. I'm actually quite stoked for it. Andy, you're welcome to join us on either one as well. Obviously, my one is the place to be, but that's completely up to you.
Well, if you've got two devices, what I would suggest is logging on to both and getting YouTube up and streaming them both simultaneously, because I'm sure you'll see some run-ins at some point across or some sort of hijinks going on.
There's likely to be interference. Yeah,
definitely go support the guys at Give Me a Hull Yeah, whether your flavor is SmackDown or whether it's Ring of Honor. Those guys have got you covered on both fronts tonight. For myself, I've just finished writing a feature on LA Knight and what's behind his popularity, which was good fun to write, with a link into the interview we did at the Money in the Bank press junket as well. So that will be released imminently. If not tonight, it'll probably be tomorrow or Sunday. You'll also have seen earlier today I put out the Bailey interview from Money in the Bank as well. So I'm still getting through some of them. I will get them out before SummerSlam. So I'm trying to desperately get them all kind of put together. The guys over on WrestleSphere have got theirs out already, so go check theirs out. And they differ completely. And as Sam can attest, because he filmed both of them back to back. He knows the content is very different. Bailey's one that's up is very cool. It's got a bit of a shout out and personal message to Dakota Kai. Bailey talks a little bit about her love for Paramore. So definitely some varied content there. So definitely go check that out. Still got a few more to come up in the future as well. As I say, really appreciate you guys joining us on a Friday evening, especially when there's a lot of entertainment out there for you to go watch. If you're watching this in the future, thank you very much for watching. Please give us a like. It helps us massively in terms of people being able to see future streams and videos that come out from the channel. So give us a subscribe. Easy for me to say. I'm slurring my words on at 10 to 10 on a Friday night, which is not a good sign.
I was going to say, Andy, they don't just come here for entertainment; they come here for the analysis.
That's it.
They don't just come here for our pretty faces; those are an added bonus. They come here for our big, sexy brains. That's what they come here for.
Well, we do try on both fronts. Hopefully, we succeed as well. So again, thank you very much, and we will see you again next week. And hopefully, we'll see you tonight over on Gimme a Hole Yeah on one of the streams. But for now, he's been Sam, I've been Andy, and I haven't loaded up an outro, so let's do that now. This has been Wrestling Royalty. Good night.